What is up, everyone? How is it going? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. We're back, baby. We're back. And I'm joined by two great guests, two great friends, might I add. I'm joined by Nico from Simply Bitcoin. And there he is. How's it going, Nico? How's it going, man?
Yo, what's up, dude? Happy to be here, man.
And the hottest producer in the game. I'm not saying this because of his looks, but because he has some hot sauce in his eyes. Opti, what is up?
Well, I'm doing good. I put up my producer shoes up already. You know, I'm passing the torch now. You guys are the best producers in the game. You and Jacob. I'm just a host. I'm just a host now. So hey. But yeah, it's good to go, guys. Can I tell them about the fact that I rubbed chili in my eyes right before the stream? So if I start crying, it's not because I'm passionate. It's because I rubbed habanero in my eyes. No, I'm good. I'm good. What's up, Chris? It's been a while.
It has been a minute, bro. I'm glad to have you guys back. You know, I'm excited to do this, excited to rip with you guys. Obviously, there's always stuff going on in the Bitcoin world. There's always stuff going on in clown world. So you know that is fun to do. But yeah, I just figured it's nice to do a little bit of bear market diaries. We've been chopping along this 30K, 29K mark for it seems like months, if not forever. 58K gang forever. I know that's a shout out to Dennis. He always believes that's the top and that's where we're going forever. But no, in all seriousness, getting into the numbers of it all, Caitlin Long had this great tweet referencing from CoinDesk that long-term hodlers hits an all-time high of 75% of the circulating supply is in long-term hodlers' hands. So, that's really bullish. What do you guys make of this? Obviously, we're making a lot of the short-term holders into long-term holders, or at least a lot of the short-term holders got washed out because of everything that we've experienced over the last year with, FTX, Three Arrows Capital, Genesis, Celsius, you name it. So what are your guys' thoughts with this? Good?
Well, I'll jump in, Nico, first and foremost. Obviously love to see it. And, my naive Bitcoin take would be that maybe people are learning their lessons, but obviously I think it's too soon to tell. But obviously this is a very good sign for all of us in the market. This is what we always say. The most important thing to be doing is having more and more people understand Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin, taking Bitcoin into self-custody. And we are seeing the data follow through. And if more people do this, I think people fundamentally underestimate how high this can go if people actually do the best Bitcoin practices, which is obviously take Bitcoin into self-custody. And we do our best to, we get yelled at a lot by, shouts out to Beauty on. He always gives us good constructive criticism of saying, not your keys, not your Bitcoin is not enough. It's important to tell people to take Bitcoin into self-custody using your favorite ethical Bitcoin wallets. And I will not name the 15 wallets just in the essence of time here, Chris, but it's important to get people holding Bitcoin, name the wallets that you like, the ethical Bitcoin wallet, so that people get their hand held, because that's all that really matters is people hodling. And as we move into the next bull run, man, it's going to be very awesome to see how high the price goes, because I say it all the time, the Bitcoin price is a real-time metric of people's understanding of Bitcoin. And I mean, at 30K, it still seems like no one understands what's going on over here. So hodl them coins, take Bitcoin into self-custody. This is the way.
Yeah, Nico, before you jump in real quick, Opti, you mentioned one thing, ethical Bitcoin. I know you want to describe that, or ethical Bitcoin wallets. I know that's something that Beauty On has brought up before. If you want to expand on that ethical Bitcoin topic, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I probably won't do Beauty On justice in this term, but it's about naming the Bitcoin wallets that do their best, or rather instill the best Bitcoin practices and not abusing their customers, not abusing their fan base out there. And it's usually explaining to people the best Bitcoin wallets. Again, should I name the 15 wallets that I usually use? Blue Wallet, Green Wallet, Moon Wallet, Breeze Wallet, Sparrow, Spectre, Bitcoin Core, Jade, Cold Card, Passport, Seed Signer. I'm missing some, but it's all about use the Bitcoin wallets, try them all. And then obviously there's trade-offs to all the Bitcoin wallets out there and the Bitcoin services, but it's all about spreading the signal to people, because not everyone has the time to, do all the research that we do. Not everyone has the time to sit around and try every wallet. While we do encourage everyone to try every wallet and try all the new wallets, shouts out to our boys over at Mutiny Wallet. I'm very excited about that release. It's super awesome. Oh, Phoenix Wallet. I forgot Phoenix. I love that wallet too. It's really about try the wallets, encourage the developers out there, encourage the Bitcoin ecosystem to continue to build and spread that signal so people basically get their handhold. Because look, I don't know about you guys, but do you remember when you first got into Bitcoin and you go on, I'm an Apple user, forgive me guys. I know, throw tomatoes all you want. I use Apple, but think about when you type in Bitcoin into the Apple App Store. Are your favorite wallets the number one wallets on top of that list? Usually it's not. Usually the shitcoin wallets. Oh, can we cuss?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Shitcoin. Okay, usually it's shitcoin wallets, and I wouldn't recommend these wallets to people. And it's all about kind of getting that signal out there, guiding people towards the tools that we like. We call it the freedom tools. Like the freedom tools are there, and it's all about encouraging and educating people and highlighting the stuff that you like so that more people start using it. Because again, the most important thing to do is getting 8 billion people holding Bitcoin and not leaving their Bitcoin on an exchange. And part of that is like, look, I've done the work, again, we try to minimize trust as much as possible, but let's be honest, you are the counterparty risk to your friends and family, and you need to explain to them like what the best tools are so that they don't get themselves wrecked. Like it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah. And Opti, I think that's a really great point. There was actually an exploit just like a couple weeks ago of Atomic Wallet. It's a wallet that has, Bitcoin and other shit coins or altcoins in there. One of the cardinal sins of it is it's closed source. So while it's a popular wallet, or it's kind of one of the first wallets that you see when you go into the app store of like Bitcoin wallet or altcoin wallet or whatever crypto wallet, it appears there was an exploit and about $180,000, which, I guess is not catastrophic because it was over multiple accounts, but it could be if you're holding a few $1,000s or a few $100 and this is your first touch point with Bitcoin or even crypto, and then you're losing all this money. This is something that is not a great user experience. And obviously, to your point, Opti, it's not an ethical Bitcoin wallet as you and I would reside. But Nico, love to hear, you've been awfully quiet, but love to hear your thoughts on the 75% of hodlers are now classified as long-term hodlers, basically people that have not sold or moved their Bitcoin in over the course of the year. Does this mean we're winning? Is this the numbers you want to see growing? Nico, what are your thoughts?
100%, bro. Look, I always say, if enough people take self-custody, we'll win. And there's nothing they could do about it, right? And so like that is the end goal, right? Is people taking self-custody. Now, why is this happening versus why wasn't this happening in the beginning? Well, think about all the horror stories that you heard like in the infancy or the early days of Bitcoin. People were spending $10,000, 10,000 Bitcoin to buy pizza, or, just making reckless Bitcoin purchases. Now that Michael Saylor has stepped in, now that BlackRock has stepped in, now that Fidelity has stepped in, put their stamp of approval, Tesla is holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think it's become very, very apparent to everybody that, this is not something that you want to sell. And I think that is a phenomenon that's happening. And I also think that a lot of people got their fingers burnt on the stove, so to speak, because of what happened with Celsius, what happened with the Gemini Earn product, what happened with FTX. And it's kind of like Mount Gox, like all over again. And those happen to be the harshest learning experiences, but also the most effective learning experiences, because people realize, okay, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So I think those two things are happening at the same time. And it like, just look on it on a worldwide scale. So you have public companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, but also on a nation state level, you have a country that just made Saifedean the national economic advisor, and they made Bitcoin legal tender, right? So the writing's on the wall, and I think people really see, okay, look, there's really 21 million Bitcoin. This thing, Michael Saylor is literally saying, at the time he was the CEO of MicroStrategy, now he's the chairman, but at the time he was saying, look, it's going up forever, Laura, right? So I think people are starting to really like figure out, look, if I sell my Bitcoin, I potentially might not be able to get as much in the future. And I think that leads to people really thinking long-term and really thinking, really kind of, the famous Odell quote, right? Stay humble, stack sats. And they're doing just that. They're buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, taking that Bitcoin into self-custody, putting it into cold storage, locking up the key, hopefully securing it properly, and, saving it for a rainy day, right? They're using it as savings technology. And I think that's why we're seeing this massive move of Bitcoin off of exchanges and into self-custody. So it's very, very bullish to see. I think Bitcoin's incentives are they continue to win. And I think that this will continue to accelerate this trend, man. And I think that in 5-10 years, people will look back and say, if you have one Bitcoin, you're in a privileged elite few. Like you're in a very, very special class of people, and people are just waking up to that, I think.
Muted there, my bad. Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is very awesome. It's very cool. So this is actually my first full cycle. I think you guys knew I'm kind of a class of 2020. So obviously we kind of had the historic run up 2020 into 2021. Then we have the crash, pretty historic. And then there's kind of, normally I hear from Bitcoin miners or my friends that mine Bitcoin. Nico, maybe you can opine on this. Like normally there's like a chop for a year and a half, 2 years, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes through a new cycle of a new historic bull run, and then a drop off. And, this is kind of the cycle. So as we're preparing for the halving, it's coming up in April, it seems, of 2024, obviously depending on how fast or how slow blocks come in, but looking like it's going to be in the middle or tail end of April. What is something people can do to prepare for the historic run up? Is this a good time to be messing with your setups? Is this a good time to staying humble and stacking sats, as you were saying, Nico? Like, what should people do while this is going on? While we're leading up to normally a historic run? Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, I mean, look, the best thing that you could do is just accumulate as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. That's something that I've learned from the previous cycles. Is you kind of want to do anything that you can do to accumulate Bitcoin ethically, whether that's, fiat mine as much as humanly possible. Obviously, I can't advocate publicly for leveraging your Bitcoin. I can't say that, right? But, do whatever it takes to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. That's the name of the game. That's always been the name of the game. And the way that you do that is you lower your time preference. Perhaps maybe you don't go out to eat as much as you used to. Lower your spending, raise your earnings, and then put as much of that into Bitcoin. Now, on the mining front, a good friend of mine who is he is the chief mining officer at Bitfarms, a publicly traded mining company. And I never forget the way that he described mining to me, and it stuck with me. And when he said it, it just clicked, right? He's like, Nico, look at mining like a leverage long, right? And some of the best opportunities to get into mining are at the bottom of bear markets, right? This is the best opportunities, but also you need to survive, right? The name of the game is surviving. What tends to happen is, the hash rate is continuing to go up. So all the people that don't have cheap electricity costs are going to get flushed out. But if you start mining and you have good enough electricity costs, if you have cheap enough electricity and you make it to the next bull run, I think you're going to be heavily, heavily rewarded, right? But again, if you're not one of those people that live in an area that has cheap power, cheap electricity, you happen to live in a big city and whatnot, or you don't have a lot of capital, my recommendation is always just dollar cost average. Just buy Bitcoin, stay humble, stack sats. Don't buy altcoins, don't gamble. This is really a long-term gain. I think I saw Luke Broyles' tweet that came out this morning. I think the biggest gains in Bitcoin are the biggest opportunities in Bitcoin are still ahead of us. I think that if I would have told you 10 years ago or 5 years ago, better said, if I would have told you, hey, Nico, 5 years from now, Bitcoin would be on a company's treasury, and they're using it as an alternative to fiat. Bitcoin was basically made legal tender of a nation state. I wouldn't have believed you. Could you imagine in 5 years where we're going to be at when both Michael Saylor on the public company level is going to be vindicated, and Nayib Bukele on the nation state level, he's going to be vindicated as well, right? The whole game changes, right? Like the whole outlook of Bitcoin is it becomes undeniable at that point that both Michael Saylor and Nayib Bukele made the right move. And then I think it's just a matter of time before other companies start to wake up and say, look, we can't afford this thing. And mind you, this isn't just the theory anymore. BlackRock, in the last 2 weeks, the fact that you have the largest asset manager in the world signaling. You have Larry Fink on CNBC literally saying that Bitcoin is going to be an international asset and that it's better in fiat currencies. And he named a couple of reasons, right? Of course, he was shilling his ETF. I think it's a testament to Bitcoin's winning incentives. In 2018, Larry Fink literally said that Bitcoin it's useless other than for money laundering. Fast forward a couple of years later, Bitcoin's incentives stay winning. And then Larry Fink has no choice but to bend the knee because of market forces. He sees what Fidelity's doing. He sees how MicroStrategy is outperforming a lot of these other public companies because they decided to incorporate Bitcoin into their strategy. Yeah, man, I think a lot of people don't understand how early we are. And just the mere fact, if you're able to get to 1 Bitcoin, if you're able to get to 2 Bitcoin, you're in an elite group of 21 million people. 5 million Bitcoin are lost. So you're really in a group of 16 to 17 million people that have the privilege to have just 1 Bitcoin. There is 61 million millionaires all around the world, and there's only 15 to 21 million Bitcoin. Do the math. If every single millionaire around the world wanted to own just 1, they physically, literally could not do so. And that by itself should make you extremely, extremely bullish.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great rant. Opti, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, first off, let's go. I'm feeling even more bullish than ever. But to your original question, Chris, you asked me about how many cycles. You asked how many cycles we've been here. I've been here for 2 bear markets, and I still feel like I haven't even done a full cycle, considering that China banned mining last cycle, and it felt like we had that the bull market got stopped halfway through. I'll put it nicely. But where do I think we are right now, and what do I think is the best things to be doing right now? Personally, my conservative view right now is that we're probably going to crab market. I still have PTSD right now, and I feel like we just have one more leg down in us before we actually hit the rocket ship and get thrusters and start to get into the bull run. But I think the best advice is what Matt Odell always says, and we've added an addition to it. Shouts out to our boy Vikingo, who's added to the lexicon. Matt Odell always says, "Stay humble, stack sats," but our boy Vikingo added, "Stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent." Right now is the best time to really audit your behavior. Look at your spending habits, understand where you can kind of save, be a little frugal right now, save as much Bitcoin as possible. And it's something we say all the time, provide value and save in Bitcoin. So whatever skill set you have, just go super hard on that for the next couple of months going into the holiday season, and try not to spend as many sats as possible, and try to figure out whether that's working a second job, whether that's, working a new job, a new side hustle, or someone today was telling us in spaces that they're literally buying lawnmowers, fixing them up and flipping them for sats. So get creative. There's a lot of creative ways you can stack sats right now. And it's kind of leans back to the Pierre Rochard meme of sell your chairs. You shouldn't be sitting in a chair right now. You should be stacking as much as possible. Obviously, I'm kind of joking when I say that because, again, you don't want to overexert yourself. You don't want to over leverage yourself. You just want to make sure that you can pay your bills, eat food, pay your rent, all that good stuff, and then save in Bitcoin. Because I hate to be the Bitcoiner, and I've been saying this for a while, the last couple of months. This cycle really does feel different considering everything that Nico just laid out for us. And we saw this morning, shouts out again to another friend, Mike Hobart. He showed us a paper of a BlackRock, some investors or researchers over there at BlackRock. And apparently they had an internal memo last year. And they were basically saying that the best allocation is 85% Bitcoin. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm way over that percentage. But the fact that they are talking about Bitcoin in the same way that we talk about it just makes me feel like this cycle really will be different. And I know a lot of us Bitcoiners, we kind of have PTSD from last cycle, and we don't want to speculate too hard. No one knows where the price is going, right? But 100K does feel like it's going to get absolutely blown apart in this cycle. I think the price is going to go absolutely nuclear, and it's going to go higher than any of us even imagine. Yes, there's going to be volatility. Yes, there might be one more leg down and all that good stuff. And I don't think this is a super cycle yet. I think we still have a few more cycles in here, but I really do think it's going to go absolutely nuclear, considering that Bitcoin has crossed the Rubicon into mainstream consciousness. Chris was telling us that we're going to play a vid, but the whole thing is everyone is talking about Bitcoin, whether it's corporate press, whether it's influencers, it's literally in pop culture. Like, we are at that point right now where it's only going to take a few more big names, a few more respected people to endorse Bitcoin. And everyone and their mother is going to get into Bitcoin, at least have some exposure. And people really underestimate how strong the DCA army is out there, and further, how little amount of capital from every individual it takes for the price to go. Yes, they're doing everything in their power to unleash an ETF, and we know how ETFs are able to manipulate the price. But I do think that Bitcoin is a different beast, and as long as everyone is taking Bitcoin into self-custody, they're going to have a hard time controlling this. And if everyone out there that is holding Bitcoin understands Bitcoin like we do, we're really at the beginning of a nuclear transition into the finances of the future, and we're on the front lines. And so, going back to the original question, Chris, what do I think people should be doing? Obviously, staying humble, stacking sats, staying solvent, providing value, maybe getting a side hustle, saving as much as you can, be frugal. But also, like you kind of hinted on, make sure your Bitcoin hygiene is good right now. Like, this is the calm before the storm. I'm kind of convinced we're going to crab market for a couple of months, so that everyone out there has an opportunity to stack. But now is the time to, if you have Bitcoin on an exchange, download a mobile wallet. Make sure your Bitcoin is in your custody. If you just have your Bitcoin in a mobile wallet, make sure you get yourself a hardware wallet. If you have a single sig, with a passphrase and you're feeling like, man, the coin that I'm holding is going to go up in purchasing power, maybe think about multi-sig. If you aren't running a node, now is the time to be running a node, because as someone that's been around for the very end of the 2017 bull market and the 2020 bull market, or 2019 bull market, which got cut in half, when the bull markets come around, it just gets absolutely crazy, and everyone gets caught up in the euphoria, and everyone gets caught up in price predictions. And look, I'm telling everyone this up front. I'm being honest here. My original sin is being bull-tarded AF, and I already know I'm going to be losing my mind once it starts pumping again. So this is what I'm doing. I'm making sure that I have all my ducks in a row, because when the price starts getting frothy, you're just like, okay, next week, 10K plus. Like, well, let's go over under. What's this next week going to be like? It's going to 50K in a day. And just understand human psychology. And as much as we do think this time is different, humans are the same. And you got to understand yourself and understand your own mentality and get yourself in order. Like, don't listen to people out there. Do what's best for you. It is your money. It is, opt-in, permissionless, fuck you money. So don't listen to me if you know what's best with your money, but you just got to understand, be vigilant out there, because you are your own worst enemy. And when it gets frothy, man, people get greedy and you might wreck yourself. Stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent is probably the best advice.
Staying humble is the important part there, Opti, not just the stack and sats. Kind of moving along to, I think that's great advice from both of you guys. But obviously, we saw FedNow launch last week, so last Thursday. Basically, it looks like more than 120 banks and payment providers have been taking part of the pilot program since 2021. It looks like they're claiming that it's a way to instantly transfer money between institutions. It kind of set caps of anywhere from a limit as low as 100,000 up to 500,000 that they can transfer instantly between financial institutions. I just want to say, it seems like the Fed and banks are on the ropes and they're scared. Even the article is very funny. It says, this is not a way to replace Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. They listed all these things that they're not trying to replace. But obviously, it seems they're kind of being beaten out by Silicon Valley tech companies. And even Silicon Valley tech companies, I'd say, are even being beaten out from Lightning and the Bitcoin network. There's a really interesting thing. So obviously, you guys know of Chat GPT. That's kind of all the craze that's been going on right now. Obviously, Sam Altman's the founder, founded WorldCoin, and they had a big announcement fucking yesterday. That's ridiculous. Guys, here's advice, and you can take this to the bank. Don't scan your eyeballs and don't take custody of WorldCoin. You could take that to the fucking bank. Do not do those two things. You do not want to give up your biometrics to a company as crazy as Sam Altman. But anyway, it was something that was really interesting during the Lightning Summit a couple weeks ago down in Nashville at Bitcoin Park, which I recommend everyone checking out. One of the guys that works for Fedi was talking about the issues that ChatGPT is going on right now. Is right now when people do a query or they ask a question to ChatGPT, there's normally a fine or not a fine, a fee of anywhere from 3 cents to 20 cents. Obviously, a lot of people are trying to use it a ton. Obviously, you can rack up a huge payment. I think they limit it right now that you can use it for like 10 to 20 times for free. And then if you want more, you can pay $20 a month and you can kind of get unlimited access or a limited amount of access. Well, a lot of people are spinning up bots and hackers. And every time they go to query, there's an issue. And basically the issue is the 3 cents to 7 cents to 20 cents is really hard to charge on a credit card because it looks like a fraudulent practice. But then they don't want to charge people like $100 and then not use it and get frustrated and leave. So the issue that they're dealing with in getting chargebacks or all these issues is basically a payments issue, which could be fixed with Lightning. Imagine you go into ChatGPT and you're like, hey, what is the best time to stack sats? You ask whatever question you want in there. And then all of a sudden, Lightning invoice pops up and you pay it, and you're paying instantaneously from yourself to the payment provider of ChatGPT or OpenAI. And then you're helping reduce the amount of friction and the payments cost. That's the issue with it. I know that they just raised about like $28 billion from Microsoft. I don't know if it was an acquisition, but basically they're hemorrhaging money. They're losing millions upon millions of dollars a day due to the payments issue, which is something that really Lightning and this Lightning engineer or developer was telling me that's really interesting, that like Lightning would help fix their issue of losing money. And they could actually make money by charging people fractions of a penny or a couple cents here and there to do queries on ChatGPT. So I thought it was very fascinating, and things that you wouldn't think Lightning and Bitcoin can help can actually go and increase. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but FedNow. So what are your thoughts on it, Nico and Opti? Do you think FedNow is they're scared? Do you think it's their way of trying to opt and trying to pigeonhole people from going into Bitcoin? Obviously, it's kind of right now only between banking institutions, but obviously many Bitcoiners have said they believe in that a CBDC is coming and that you're going to get a FedNow account. And then basically you're going to have an account with the Fed is what the future or forecasting here in the United States. I'll go with you, Nico. What are your thoughts on FedNow right now?
Yeah, dude. So I think it's the way in the door. I don't believe the narrative that it's like, look, like this is for banks and this is for this and this is for that. If you take a look at the language from the Treasury, if you take a look at the language from the current administration in the Presidential Economic Report, they dedicated 20 entire pages bashing Bitcoin, making the case as to why central banking is necessary, making the case as to why you need a state for money. And then back in late last year, Biden released an executive order basically ordering the Treasury to look into digital assets. And the Treasury released a report called The Future of Money and Payments. And in that report, in the eyes of the current administration, the eyes of the current Treasury Secretary, the future of money and payments are stable coins and payment platforms, but they did not mention Bitcoin, right? They mentioned central bank digital currencies in there as well. And then also the reaction from political opponents like Ron DeSantis in Florida passed a bill banning central bank digital currencies in Florida. And also on the Democratic side, it's a bipartisan, shout out to you guys as well. You guys brought him on for the Bitcoin conference, RFK Jr., literally going out that, yes, they're trying to introduce central bank digital currencies, and yes, that it's slave money. So, how convenient that they released, their first iteration of a CBDC so quickly. I think the fact that they're not going through Congress to get this approval. I think that they know they don't have the votes, but I also think that they know that they have to roll this out very, very quickly. If not, they might risk themselves getting left behind. So it's kind of weird how they're playing this, man. But I do believe that the FedNow is the first iteration of an American version of a central bank digital currency. They're not doing it legally. They're not going through Congress to get approval. And that's why I believe you have certain states like Florida getting out in front and saying, listen, we're banning this thing outright. You will not have a central bank digital currency in Florida. And there's some other states that I heard very similar language, but still, I haven't seen any legislative action. So yeah, I do not believe the don't pay attention to this. It is not a CBDC. But if you actually look at what they want to do, because they're releasing reports, they're literally telling you they want to launch a CBDC, and then how convenient the same year they launch FedNow. So it's like, which, by the way, if you look at the wording in the FedNow statement, it's specifically tailored for retail. So like, yeah, man, like, look, you could change the definitions and you could change the wordings and you could, come up with interesting graphics and telling you how quick and efficient this is in the payment systems. Yeah, but I still think it's a CBDC. And I'll tell you what, though. Bitcoin's still going to win. And the reason Bitcoin's still going to win is because the CBDC doesn't solve the fundamental problem as to why people are choosing an alternative in the first place. And this is why I believe the Treasury completely left out Bitcoin in their report, The Future of Money and Payments. And the reason for that is because I don't think that they can admit that a money can exist that doesn't decrease in purchasing power, meaning a money can exist that doesn't have inflation. Because I think that the moment that they admit that, the cat is out of the bag. That is how the US government is able to spend $1 trillion every single year, more than they collect in tax revenue. And the reason they're able to do that is because they have a money printer. So, I mean, look, all these forces are converging, and it's important for Bitcoiners to really highlight the dangers of a central bank digital currency and the games of which they're playing. And they're telling you they want to do this. Like, just to be very clear, like, look at the reports. It all says it there. It's all right there, right? So yes, to answer your question, to wrap it up real quick, I think that the FedNow is definitely the first iteration of an American central bank digital currency.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Opti, anything you want to add there? FedNow, love it.
Yeah,
bearish, bullish.
Oh, well, obviously bullish on FedNow. No, I'm joking. I like adding to Nico's point. It's becoming very clear to me that Bitcoin has forced the narrative and forced this issue, because I don't believe we'd have a FedNow if it wasn't for Bitcoin succeeding. And it's very funny when you read the framing of FedNow or any attempt at a total payments app. And it's usually, like Nico was saying, digital payments, quicker payments, less friction, 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, digital payments. And it's like, hey, we have Bitcoin for that. Like, why are you even having these conversations? And you're even seeing them use like peer-to-peer in their official writings and talking about digital payments for a digital world. And I'm just like not surprised, because we wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't for Bitcoin succeeding, if it wasn't for the Bitcoin price to run up so high. I don't think that the government, the Federal Reserve, would have initiated some form of improvement on their system. It was working well enough for them for however long it's been out. Like, the world's already digital, money's already digital, and they pretty much didn't really need or feel a need to come out with a new updated system until Bitcoin started winning. And I think the official paper was saying like they started this FedNow around 2017. So that would mean what, 2 bull markets ago, at the very end of the 2017 bull market is when they started to initiate the CBDC FedNow system. And so I don't know. I try not to fall into the idea that there's a bunch of coincidences. Like, there's no such thing as coincidence, right, Nico? So in my opinion, I don't want to have, what's the scientific view of causation does not mean correlation, or correlation doesn't mean causation, or whatever. But it is just very funny to me that we are seeing them use the Bitcoin narrative for their own digital system. They use peer-to-peer, they use digital payments. I think they're even using like more equitable, like better for the retail. This is better for you guys out there. And it doesn't surprise me at all, but it is interesting when you add that with the other narratives about surgical control of the money, and you start to really realize what they want to do, and it's absolutely terrifying. And I know that they're saying this isn't this isn't a CBDC, but nothing's more official than the official denial. And in my opinion, this is just the Trojan horse for CBDC. And again, this isn't central bank digital currency, it is central bank digital control, and it's about them maintaining control, full stop. And anyone else that is trying to twist up the meanings of words, you can understand where they're coming from. They want to gaslight you so you don't understand what's going on. They want to maintain their control. And I'm just not surprised. Like, in my opinion, I absolutely love to see Bitcoin make people compete on the free market. And as we know, I'm the reigning anti-state, anti-government person on Simply Bitcoin. And I just don't think governments and bureaucrats can compete with entrepreneurs on the free market. So, love to see them try. But all things are good for Bitcoin. And the more that they push against Bitcoin, the more they're going to Barbara Streisand Bitcoin. And people, if they can compare the two, central bank digital control currency and Bitcoin, an open, permissionless, debasable or hard cap money, it's very obvious which one you're going to choose. It's Bitcoin or slavery. And I don't know about you guys, but I choose Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great rant there, Opti. So speaking of politicians or bureaucrats trying to compete in the free market, so we've got RFK Jr. here. Obviously, he was announcing his plan to back the dollar, the US dollar, with Bitcoin and also end Bitcoin taxes. So I guess I'll give my 2 cents first, and then I'd love to hear your opinion. I think backing the dollar with Bitcoin, while it sounds great on paper and, it's a great talking point. Oh, I want to back the dollar with, a hard commodity like Bitcoin. I don't think it fixes the situation that we're in. Obviously, they'd have to money multiplier. Basically, when we were in the gold standard, they were always changing and printing more money than they had backed in gold. So I think you run to that same issue, just especially with the amount of debt that the U.S. has right now, and then just debts globally. I just don't think that there's a way out of this aside from printing money. But we can build a parallel system with Bitcoin and, build circular economies. People accept Bitcoin, pay Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, use Bitcoin every day. I think ending taxes is something that is very, very appealing. But one of my good friends, Q, always said, watch their actions, not what they say. Obviously, politicians love to spew their BS and give you all these different things. Many Bitcoiners have been burned by it. Elon saying accepting Bitcoin for Tesla. I know he's not a politician, but he's in line with it, a bureaucrat and trying to get free money. Eric Adams saying, hey, I'm going to accept my salary in Bitcoin, to then making a moratorium in New York, making it more difficult for Bitcoin miners. And then even Mayor Suarez, who I like, but he was basically, I'm all for Bitcoin, and then made Miami coin. So that's just a few examples. Nico, I'd love your take. Is RFK Jr. Got his finger on the pulse? Is he correct? Do you think he can back the dollar with Bitcoin? And then what are your thoughts on potentially ending taxes for the use of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of want to focus on the taxes one initially first, right? So okay, the taxes thing is an interesting question, right? Because it's like Bitcoin is money, right? And Bitcoin is better money. So because you're choosing to use better money, you are somehow penalized for spending your money when you want to spend it, and then you have to basically pay, the different. But here's the thing: they force you to use the money that steals from you, that decreases in purchasing power over time. So the whole aspect of you're taxed on the so-called capital gain of your Bitcoin. Meanwhile, if you kept your money or your savings or your energy or your time or your work in dollars, that would literally just continue to lose purchasing power over time. So that idea is a little crazy to me, right? And that's why this whole legal tender thing in El Salvador is so powerful, because it's legal tender there, meaning it's just money. So meaning you could just use it to transact. So if it increases in purchasing power over time, it's just like your money is just increasing in purchasing power over time. Why should you be penalized for that? Right. So I think that question gets the cat out of the bag altogether. And this is precisely why I do believe the Treasury completely avoided this subject altogether. I think that's why they didn't want to focus on it. I think that's why they didn't want to bring up or even introduce the mere idea of Bitcoin being money in the first place. Because I think once that cat is out of the bag, like once people understand, holy cow, not only can I use the money that doesn't decrease in purchasing power over time, but actually increases in purchasing power over time, they're going to start asking very simple questions. Like, why am I being forced to use this money in the first place? And why should I be forced to pay capital gains on a money? It's not like I'm buying a piece of property and then I'm selling it. No, this is my money. This is what I'm choosing to use as money. So like, it's just a very interesting concept to me. But I think it's going to be an indefensible position for them to explain as more and more people wake up. Now, going back to RFK, I definitely think that he's spoken to the right person. I definitely think that he said the right things. I definitely think that he's focusing on the community heavily. I think he just announced a Twitter Spaces that he was going to go on with very predominant Bitcoiners. So clearly that this is a part of his campaign strategy. Now the question is like, do I believe him? I don't need to believe him. I believe in his incentives. It came out the other day that he holds $250,000 worth of Bitcoin. So like, I know he's incentivized to, push this thing forward. And I don't really need to believe in whether RFK is being authentic or not. But I'll tell you this, right? You have two candidates one on the Democratic side in second place and one on the Republican side in second place as well, for the Republican presidential candidacy and the Democratic presidential candidacy. And what I could say now is that there's a non-zero chance that we have a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House in 2024. And that makes me so incredibly bullish. And just like Nayib Bukele, I don't necessarily trust Nayib Bukele. Bitcoiners have the saying, don't trust, verify. But what I can tell you is that I'm a big believer in incentives. And I think what you're seeing in El Salvador, the success that you're seeing in El Salvador, it's a little bit deeper than what people think, right? I think it has to do, and I had a conversation with Jimmy Song the other day about this. The base layer of society is money. And if that base layer of society is corrupted, it's fundamentally broken, I think that there's unintended consequences to that. And I think what Nayib Bukele has done is that he's fixed that base layer. And because he's fixed that base layer and he's made that base layer a base layer based on truth, a base layer that is tied to reality via proof of work, you have a strong base layer, meaning you have a society with aligned incentives. And I think we have a society now with misaligned incentives. When politicians get elected into office, it's just human greed. They're not incentivized to do good by their constituents to stay in power. They're incentivized to get as close as humanly possible to the money spigot, which is why you have politicians like Nancy Pelosi and a bunch of other politicians that are supposedly on a government salary and they're worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Why did that happen? Because of their proximity to the money printer. So I don't really need to trust RFK Jr. I don't really need to trust Ron DeSantis. The fact that they're pushing the orange message forward tells me that they're on our side. I always say this all the time. It is not left versus right. It is not red versus blue. It is the party of green, which is the party of nihilism, poverty, central bank digital currency, slavery, versus the party of orange, which is the party of freedom, prosperity, peace, and Bitcoin. And I could tell you one thing about both RFK Jr. and Ron DeSantis. They are definitely on the side of orange. And that's what I care about. And that's really what's pushing the mark. And shout out to you guys for really giving him an audience at the Bitcoin conference, because it's individuals like him that are really going to break the Bitcoin echo chamber. And most importantly, unify the country behind this common good. Bring the left and the right together and say, listen, you guys have a lot of things in common. You guys are infighting. You guys are, falling for the divide and conquer strategy. What we really got to do is we got to fix the money. And if you fix the money, you fix the world. And that's why I'm so excited to hear the messages coming out of all these guys, even though I might not trust them 1,000,000%.
Nico, yeah, thank you for your kind words. And it was a big feat to get him there. It was a team effort to get him to the Bitcoin conference and speak there. To your point, maybe he's not breaking out of the Bitcoin echo chamber. Maybe he's breaking the fiat echo chamber and waking people up from the matrix. I know a lot of people were not too keen on us having RFK or politicians in general at the conference. But to your point, Nico, it's like it's waking up, someone's grandmother or someone's great aunt or, family members that are like, oh, I don't know much about Bitcoin, but I know where I was when JFK was assassinated or RFK's uncle when he was assassinated. So I definitely think it helps propagate the message, maybe by a different means than you and I and Opti are used to, but it's definitely something worth helping wake up the masses to what is Bitcoin? Why is he talking at a Bitcoin conference? Why is this the first event on his campaign trail? And basically, to your point, it's not the red-blue divide, it's the orange-green divide. And I think it's an important battle. Opti, anything you want to add to that? RFK, tax-free use of your Bitcoin or backing the dollar with Bitcoin? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so to you guys' point at the very end, again, this is the crossing of the Rubicon into mainstream consciousness. Like, this is spreading the Bitcoin signal outside of our Bitcoin echo chambers. And that's kind of what Nico's always saying about breaking the Bitcoin echo chamber. It's exposing other people to Bitcoin. It's getting people, their first, second, maybe third touch on Bitcoin. So they come around to the idea of like, oh, wait, like, RFK Jr. is talking about, Kennedy's talking about Bitcoin. This is interesting. Maybe I should look into it. Maybe I should get some just in case it catches on. But on the point of backing the US dollar on Bitcoin, again, this might be the spicy take here. Like, I didn't get obsessed with Bitcoin to continue the reign of the US dollar. I don't want to put the US dollar on life support. In my opinion, fiat currencies and especially the dollar is the reason why we are in a state of perpetual war. Most of the problems start with the fact that they have a money printer. That's why we always say fix the money, fix the world. But as we've seen with El Salvador, the idea of a country putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet does have a beneficial effect. So, personally, again, I'm the anti-politician, anti-government guy on Simply Bitcoin, so take it with a grain of salt. But I personally don't trust politicians, but I love how Nico always says it. You don't have to trust them. The Bitcoin incentives are pure. And whether this is lip service or not, I think is really besides the point. The point is what we keep talking about is more people talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin becoming a point of contention in either this election or the following elections. Because again, like backing the US dollar with Bitcoin, the technical aspects really don't make sense to me. But hey, the US holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that would be bullish. Again, this is with the given that politicians do want to pay back their debt. I don't know if that's the case. It seems like they would just continue to print and print and print and print, roll it over. So there's that. As you can tell, a little cynical on that part. But eliminating capital gains tax would be huge, would be absolutely massive for Bitcoin. And not only that, like if you hear our RFK's announcement in regards to the eliminating capital gains tax, he said it himself, and that would be ensuring that entrepreneurs stay in America, that entrepreneurs come to America. And that is what really would keep America first and maintaining its power and stay in that world reserve currency status or stay in the, first world power position that we're in. Because again, we've become a country that doesn't produce anything. And if we really want to stay competitive on the world stage, it would be to embrace Bitcoiners. It would be to embrace Bitcoin companies. It would be to embrace the future of the world's money, which is, of course, Bitcoin, digital money for a digital world. So again, I would love to see the elimination of capital gains. I think that would be the big kahuna here. Like, I think that is the big signal having this conversation now. And I am just very excited to see how the Bitcoin conversation evolves in future elections. And even this one, we're still a year out. So again, I think if we just look at how El Salvador has incentivized tourism, how so many Bitcoiners are talking about going to El Salvador because of the way they're treating Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, I think it would be very smart for America to embrace Bitcoin instead of going the other route and embracing this totalitarian CBDC. So, Bitcoin is money. Like, you don't pay capital gains on your dollar's purchasing power increasing. So, like, that makes no sense. Why should we do the same thing with Bitcoin just because they're afraid of Bitcoin, just because they don't understand what Bitcoin actually is? So, to me, the the huge announcement was the elimination of capital gains tax. And the fact that this is a point of contention, like the fact that we're having this conversation in 2023, I legitimately wouldn't have thought we were having this conversation going into the 2024 election cycle. And yet here we are. And this is kind of what we always talk about. I think people underestimate how fast information is moving around the globe right now. People don't fully understand the fact that you have a supercomputer in your pocket. Everyone is interconnected, and the corporate press out there, the traditional legacy media, is on its last breath. People are stopping to trust them. And you are the new journalists. Like, you guys are the ones spreading the truth. You having these conversations with your friends and family is starting to wake up the world. And not to get too like woo-woo here, but I really do believe that human consciousness is raising on this topic, and people are waking up and starting to see the cracks in the facade that is, government and bureaucracies and all the institutions. I think people are starting to wake up just how fake everything is, and we're snapping back to reality, and people are like, wait, hold up. I didn't realize the world was this bananas, and here we are. And I always say, like, I think we might have hit peak clown world, and yet it just gets even crazier. So just buckle up. It's going to get crazy.
Definitely. All right. We got only 8 minutes here. I can't believe how fast this hour flew by. I definitely have a video that I want to show. It's about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So I'll show it, and then we'll get some commentary from both of you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. So here we go.
Multiple people said this to me, and that is it possible that your hostility to crypto could just be a lack of understanding of the tech? Like, what do you say to the fact that real smarties like Mark Andreessen and other extremely wealthy, intelligent people think that this is the future?
Yeah, like Jack Dorsey of Twitter, who is obviously brilliant. I mean, he's rich, so he must be smart.
Yes.
And he was talking about hyperinflation, which was coming to the United States in the fall of 2021. And he warned people they needed to buy Bitcoin, because there was going to be hyperinflation in the United States. We need to stop with his notion that billionaires are somehow smarter than us. Like, they may be smart about whatever it is that made them money, which they may have made in an ethical manner or not. But that certainly doesn't make them smart about things that they haven't made money on or whatever. These are just stories. Like, I know we want to say, if you say I haven't done enough research, my response to you is fuck you. I've spent 2 years investigating this. I've interviewed the head of your entire industry, who's now alleged to have been running a fraudulent scheme. Like, what more proof do you need that I am right, dude? Like, I don't know what to tell.
In one of those cases.
Yeah, I mean, they have internal Binance, the biggest exchange that's been sued by the CFTC and the SEC, and has yet to be charged by the DOJ. Let's see. They have internal communications in Binance employees, and one of the Binance employees says to the other, "Dude, we're running an unlicensed security exchange in the United States, bro." That's a alleged quote from. I mean, man, give me a break. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't know what you're talking about. By the way, I'm getting triggered. The people that say that are usually, they go like, I'm not taking financial advice from a reality star. Like, you idiot. You don't even know my career.
Man, so Nico wants to jump on this. So that was Ben McKenzie. I think he's an actor, maybe not a reality star like he calls, but yeah, he's basically saying he did 2 years of research. He interviewed the head of the Bitcoin industry, obviously. He's implying SBF of FTX. But Nico, I'd love your take. I feel like you're going to go off on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, look, basically putting the altcoin industry and the Bitcoin industry in one thing, right? It's like, look, like, I talked to the head of the biggest altcoin casino. Hey, I talked to both the heads of both these altcoin casinos, and they turned out to be criminals. Like, yeah, Bitcoiners have been saying that for a very long time now. So just using, altcoins as a scapegoat as to why you were right about what your basic case was for Bitcoin. Sure, bro. Like, but I think that there's a lot more nuance. And I'll tell you what, put money where your mouth is, bro. Short Bitcoin, or actually just don't even short it. Just don't own anything, which is, I think, shorting Bitcoin, really. Maybe not directly, but that's really basically what it is. Yeah, good luck and have fun staying poor, man. Like you can take this like moralistic stance of like, and and I could tell like based on his wording describing, billionaires and basically saying, look, like not all billionaires make their money in an ethical fashion and whatever. Look, how many billionaires are there? There's like 2,000 billionaires. I'll tell you what, they probably know a lot about money. There's a reason that they're a billionaire in the first place, right? So like, unless it's like this dictator of a South American country or Central American country that like stole the money and whatnot. Like if you're a billionaire in America and Jack Dorsey founded Twitter, of which recently got sold to Elon Musk, he created value. Right. Yeah. So like he knows what he's talking about, bro.
To add to that, he also runs Cash App and Square, which sees global payments. You know what I mean? Like,
so yeah, I mean, look, have fun staying poor. Like you're going to get wrecked over time. You can bet against this thing. And I think it's also very insincere and it's a misrepresentation to put Binance, an altcoin casino, and investigating the heads of altcoin casinos and saying because you investigated them, all of a sudden somehow Bitcoin is bad. Like Bitcoiners are the first ones to tell you, like Corey's been beating the drum for 2 years telling you that these guys are scammers. So it's like saying that like one is the other, like that's a misrepresentation. That's total BS. And he can't, if he really has been doing the research for 2 years, like really, as he says he has, he should know that Bitcoin is not crypto. Like he should know that. Like it's very, very apparent. But I think that there's more nefarious reasons behind the hood. I don't know what they quite are. But I'll tell you what, like this isn't the first actor. You had part of the Harold and Kumar guy come out with a fully produced, episode trashing Bitcoin mining. So there's clearly a heavy propaganda campaign against this thing. And I think the reason for that is simple. It's because this is the separation of money and state, and the state gets a tremendous amount of power and privilege of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. So when you hear this person saying, "Oh, I've been doing this for 2 years," and this is the conclusions I got to, number one, either he's an idiot, number one, or number two, he's not being honest. Like it's one of those two things, and Opti's cracking up, so I'm very curious what he's laughing about.
Yeah, before Opti, I'll let Opti compose himself. There's one quick thing. So it was very, very interesting. So on the bottom of this post, so Lynn Alden was saying, it's funny that Ben refers to SBF as the head of the industry and demonstrates his superficial nature of his research. SBF and FTX was minimal in Bitcoin and often criticized by Bitcoiners on record. Jack would be indeed a great discussion for Ben. So would Corey, referring to Corey Clipston. Alex Gladstein actually had a conversation with him. So this is all in relation to Ben McKenzie's book. It is Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino, Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. So obviously he's making fun of cryptocurrencies, lumping everything in Bitcoin and crypto. And Alex is like, I'd love for him to release the tape of our conversation. And someone basically commented, the fact that he dumps on you in public and then won't even release it tells us everything we need to know, that you debunked everything he said and he's a pathetic little kid. He's like, it was pretty intense conversation. He accused me of impoverishing people given that Bitcoin had fallen from its all-time high. And then Lynn was commenting back, you mean that with Ben and he wouldn't release it? I mean, aside from some technical issues, that would be a uniquely embarrassing for Ben and the team to talk to people who actually use the technology practically and then selectively disregard it. Oof, say it ain't so, Ben. And then he said he and his co-author reached out to me to learn about Bitcoin and its global use. And then as far as I can tell, failed to follow up with the contacts I offered and did not include any of this in his book. They said my interview wasn't relevant for the book, so they would not release it. So it just goes to show, like, either this guy is nefarious or idiotic at best. It's beyond reasoning. And then even Amanda Fabiano just replied with a clown emoji. So Opti, I'd love your take on all of this and listen to the soundbite, the later commentary on it all.
Yeah, so I'm cracking up just because how hilarious this all is. Like the gaslighting by Ben McKenzie is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. And look, my cynical take is Ben got wrecked. If you guys saw the Guardian article, he admitted that he lost $250,000 trying to short the market, and his timing was off. So he obviously is out here trying to trade, got absolutely wrecked and devastated. Now he's here protecting the little guy. And again, if you read that Guardian article, the research that he did, like he talked to some of the biggest known scammers in the space: SBF, Alex Mashinsky, Justin Sun, CZ. Like, we call them out as scammers constantly. And I agree with him. Crypto is a scam, but there's Bitcoin and there's shitcoin. And to that point of the very end of the Alex Gladstein tweet, you can tell that on the one hand, he's not very serious. Like, obviously, Ben is not being serious in his research. It's all about painting a certain narrative. And, you know, I don't know who's paying him off to write this crap, but it's becoming very obvious that he has his own bias, and he's out here basically trying to lump Bitcoin and shitcoins together. And again, another little tidbit of this, he's a credentialed Keynesian economist. Like, he got his bachelor's in economics. So, you know, hey, he's got the credentials, guys. Don't listen to us that have been in Bitcoin for this long. Don't listen to the people that use Bitcoin to avoid hyperinflation. Like, all of this is moot when they're not even real people, and you can't even acknowledge that there is some kind of value in Bitcoin. Again, 21 million hard cap, censorship resistant money, permissionless money. Like, to me, these are things that have value. The only thing that we need to really sit around for is the timing of Bitcoin. Bitcoin just has only been around for 14 years, but it's proven itself for the last 14 years to be the best way to store value through time and space. You literally cannot send money in instant settlement in 10 minutes across the globe. Like, if you can't see the value of this stuff, then you can't be serious in what you're talking about. Like, all true Bitcoin skeptics become Bitcoiners because we all want to destroy the Bitcoin narrative. We all come in with the view of like, oh, who needs internet nerd money? Like, let me destroy this, let me debunk this. And then you finally get close to the bottom of the rabbit hole and you're like, holy snaps, like, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. This is the future of the world. This is what the world needs. Fix the money, fix the world. And so again, my cynical take is he got wrecked trying to short the market, and now he's out here trying to parade his book around as some new hot research. And we all know his bias. Like, he's a fiat maxi, and it's really dubious, nefarious, and disgusting that he's out here being like, I'm here to protect the little guy, man. Like, I'm out here to protect the little guy that has no savings. And he's being a fiat maxi shill. Like, it couldn't get more disgusting than advocating for the very system that makes everyone poor. Like, you couldn't make this stuff up. But it is really interesting that you can still go around and have these narratives out here. Like, people wouldn't be doing this if the narratives weren't working. Again, you know, it reminds me of the change the code narrative as well that we saw last year, or the beginning of this year, end of last year. And this stuff wouldn't be working if they didn't understand one thing. No one understands Bitcoin out there. Only a small fraction of the society understands what money is, and let alone why they need to hold Bitcoin. And again, just doubling down, like, this is why we are so early, because we are still having to deal with this type of fiat propaganda. Hence why we go so hard every single day to try to wake people up. This is what it's all about, getting people to hold Bitcoin, because they have $1 trillion PSYOP campaign against the truth. And you're going to constantly see this get rolled out through the next bull market. And we can just laugh and add this to the hundreds of Bitcoin obituaries and, just laugh all the way to hyper Bitcoinization and the bright orange future. So again, just doubling down, have fun staying poor. He got wrecked, guys. This is Bitcoin derangement syndrome on full display.
Yeah, that a great line there, Opti. We are over time now, so I will kick it over to Nico first, Opti for final words. Guys, it's always a pleasure having you both. Thank you for joining us. You always have an open door here. So Nico, you want to go first, final words to wrap up?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to you, Chris, and shout out to our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. Thank you so much for, having us on Bitcoin Magazine Live today. We really appreciate the invite, like always. And hopefully, Chris, we can get you back on Simply Bitcoin in the near future. So I just want to start off with that, and then and the second thing I want to end it with this. Look, I say Bitcoin or slavery, and a lot of people perhaps interpret that in a hyperbolic it's a hyperbolic statement, and perhaps they don't put a lot of seriousness into it. I'm dead serious when I say it. We are heading into a future where you're either going to have to pick and choose between Bitcoin or central bank digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies include, capital controls, censorship. If you buy a certain product, perhaps you're not allowed to travel to certain places, or if you buy too many stakes, if you're over your stake quota, or if you're over your travel quota, or you're over your carbon quota, right? That is the future that they want for us. They tell us they're very open about it. Whether that's the European Central Bank, whether that's here in the U.S. with the Federal Reserve, whether that's in Canada. Most countries around the world are working on central bank digital currencies. The reason that I believe they're doing that is because they see the writing on the wall with the introduction of Bitcoin. And then the alternative to that is Bitcoin. I think a lot of people are finding this false sense of financial sovereignty in stablecoins, and I think it's just that, a false sense of financial sovereignty. They don't offer censorship resistant. They don't offer, they could freeze a lot of these stablecoins. They could just freeze your funds, right? So it's all fine and dandy until until shit breaks, and shit breaks is really where Bitcoin shines, right? So, that's the message that I have. Where do you want to stand? Where do you want your grandchildren, your offspring, your family? What type of money do you want them using? Do you want them using central bank digital currency money? Do you want them using central bank money and all the power that's going to give politicians and bureaucrats? Or do you want freedom money? Do you want Bitcoin, right? And I know the battle lines are a little bit obfuscated right now, but as time progresses, it's going to be very, very obvious. You have to choose between Bitcoin or slavery, and it's totally up to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. Opti, what do you got? Final words.
Let's go. Well, guys, my view on this. I stay stupidly bullish on Bitcoin. And in my opinion, whether this next cycle is different or not, whether this is the super cycle or not, I am convinced that this is most likely the last cycle for the average person to make their stacking goals. So if you, for any reason, have money on the sidelines, I am not telling you to capitulate your fiat like I would. All I'm telling you is you need to get Bitcoin exposure now, because not only is the world devolving into more dystopian, tyrannical payment systems and the world's going crazy, Bitcoin is a source of truth. It's a source of sanity in an insane world. And once you finally start to save in Bitcoin, once your purchasing power isn't getting debased, once you aren't in the hamster wheel of life, the rat race, and you're starting to unplug, you start to realize there's a lot of good out there. And you can finally live the life you want, and you can start to put your mental capacities, your mental energies, your skills towards things that you want to do. And this is how we usher in a better world. The system is bent and fixed against you. This is uncontentious at this point. Now, what do you want to do? You have a choice, Bitcoin or slavery. Do you want to continue down the path you're going with no hope for anything, on a nihilistic path where the future is literally as worse than any sci-fi dystopia you could even imagine? Or do you join us on the bright side, on the orange side, on the road to hyper-Bitcoinization and changing the world one side at a time? You literally vote with your money and your feet. Well, Bitcoin is an option. Bitcoin is a tool to do both of that. So I would just recommend you continue to stack, go as hard as you can the next couple of months, the next year, before we get into the bull run after the halving. And I am telling you, one day you will sit there and your grandchildren will look at you and be like, man, my grandpa, my grandma was an absolute legend, and they stacked sats while the world was burning. And this is why we have so much good stuff around us. This is why we're living prosperous. This is why my life is good, is because someone in my family took it upon themselves to change the trajectory of my bloodline. This is the way. This is what we are doing. We're changing humanity because the boomers out there have stolen our future, and we are taking this shit back.
Wow. Great job, Opti. Always great to have you, Nico and Opti. Everyone else, thanks for watching the stream. You can go and get your tickets to Bitcoin Amsterdam and Bitcoin 2024 at b.tc/conference. You can use code BMLive to get 10% off there. You can also use code BMLive to get 10% off everything in the store. Thanks, guys, for listening. Peace.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.